The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to The Gloves Are Off. Well, this week's edition, I'm Moses Woldu, and we got a great show for you today. And of course, I got to introduce my guests and my co-host before we actually get this whole thing started. Greg Buchanan, as always.
Hey, Moses.
Excellent. Great to hear good things from you.
Thank you.
All right. And we have our guest, SHAYNE TOMAYER. You are the Bobcats play-by-play guy. Awesome to have you here and taking the time to be on this lovely set.
It's a pleasure to have a chance to have my wonderful voice heard.
To that beautiful face, right?
Oh, thank you.
There you go. All right. You're not just that voice.
A little bit of eye candy.
Yeah.
People don't realize that when they're listening on air.
Well, you know what? You're stating your case, and we'll start off with the first question. Of course, it's CFL free agency, which kicked off today. A couple big news. Chris Milos re-signed with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Craig Butler, no longer a Rough Rider. There have been a couple other plays, like Shea Emery going to Toronto. Is there one that really stands out for you that you saw today?
I think for me, the thing that made me happiest, obviously, was Milo re-signing with the Riders. Unhappiest is Butler leaving. I'm a green guy.
It was between one or the other. A lot of people, even on Twitter, were saying, you know, Butler, you won a cup, you were drafted by the Riders, why don't you show some respect? And I find that a little funny because, you know, this is a business, right? It's not necessarily, some people take it personally, but let's
you
be
had
fair.
to know that the Red Blacks and the Riders are going to be the two most active teams today. A, the Red Blacks are building an organization. B, the Riders, you win the championship, everybody wants your guys. And your guys are suddenly worth just that little bit more money than they were yesterday.
And you can't blame Butler because we always talk about that window of opportunity for players to make their living and to make the money that's going to be offered to them. Saying that, Butler has to take the money and run. You know, I'm sorry, Riders fans, but that's the way it is. That's the way the sport is. And for the Riders,
and such a short career in football.
Well, exactly.
Right?
And with the Riders, Sheets is likely could be gone. Dressler definitely is gone. And you look, Schmidt may not come.
They
Hall
lost
as well.
Greg Newman earlier today, so the secondary really took a blow because Greg Newman signed with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as well. So there's a couple holes already in that secondary, in that safety position for Saskatchewan.
They're not just losing key guys, but depth guys.
Yeah,
I
and
think that-
Canadians too. Yeah.
Well, can they? I'm sure they'll be making moves. We'll be confident about that. Will they be making a move for a backup quarterback? Of course, I guess who is it? Tino Sinceri is the guy that Saskatchewan has built up. I guess he'll be the number 2. But there's still a spot open, and of course, Kevin Glenn's name has popped up. Now, according to his Twitter account earlier today, Kevin Glenn was not too happy, calling the Ottawa organization a bunch of snakes. And as well saying, you know what, they won't trade me to any other East team. We'll see what happens. Turns out that was somebody else. Kevin Glenn, exactly. Somebody else in air quotes.
Yeah.
Kevin Glenn came back and said, minutes later, that my account was hacked. This was the issue. That's not in my character. Even so, even if this isn't his character, knowing Kevin Glenn, even at the bitter situation that was in Calgary, even things that transpired throughout his career as being a number 2, always the bridesmaid, you'd call it, right, Bucky? He's always been the consummate professional. This time it seemed out of turn. Is that fair to say, or is this maybe him trying to backtrack?
You don't want to say, but you gotta love Twitter. It kind of sounds like, I probably shouldn't have said that. Let's kind of take that back now, so I just don't burn any bridges.
And it's not like he said anything drastic.
No.
Right? It's to me, it looks like a cop-out. It smells like a cop-out. I wish that, you know, in communication day to day with whoever, that I could say blindly, oh no, I didn't actually say that. Somebody else said that for me. Every time that I said something stupid to my wife, that I could say, oh no, sorry, I was hacked.
That was another person that jumped inside my body and spoke.
Exactly.
It
just
via text.
To me, Kevin Glenn has unfortunately been kicked around for a long time, and maybe this is just that straw that he finally gets mad enough that he says something.
Yeah, Kevin Glenn is like the Rodney Dangerfield of the CFL. He's not getting any respect wherever he goes. He played a heck of a couple of years in Calgary. Very well, should have been their starter. Probably should have held on to him. Goes to Ottawa, thinks that I'm going to be the starter there, and then who's Henry? And then they sign Henry, and then now he's like, well, what the hell's wrong with me?
Hey, you know what? It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I do want to have a nice tie-in here because, of course, Arlen Bruce with the CFL and NFL. Arlen Bruce made some interesting comments, which resulted in him getting released by the Montreal Alouettes earlier today and also fined by the CFL. Now, you wonder what those comments are. They're about Michael Sam, of course, the openly gay player from Missouri, the University of Missouri, who's going to be going into the NFL draft later this year. Guys, the comments were quite lewd. Is punishment maybe perhaps fair? But I think it's in large part what these macho sports are. In the NFL, that football mentality is you got to be a tough guy. And to have a gay athlete, a gay teammate out there, an openly gay teammate, never mind, there are gay athletes, and I'm sure there are some that are in the closet with NFL teams as we speak. But an openly gay athlete, do you think the NFL is ready for that? A major professional sport, probably the major sport in North America. Are they ready for that?
Well, it's the shield, right? The NFL, and it is the big time, and I don't think they have a choice but to be ready for it. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here on draft day when he's a guy that's slated to be a mid-round pick, and when he gets, it's his time, and you've got a team from one of those stereotypical parts of the country, a Minnesota or maybe a Texas or whatever that needs a defensive end, he's available and they skip on him for somebody else. That's when it's going to become a story. You don't want this to be something that defines his career, that for the rest of his career that, oh, there's that defensive end that happens to be a homosexual, and that's part of every gameplay. I mean, the guy, he's an all-star. He led the SEC in sacks and tackles for a loss, played in the Senior Bowl this year. The guy's got every bit of his resume necessary to be in that league, and you hope that it doesn't have an impact, but unfortunately it's going to, and that's terrible because I think we'd all like to move.
His football pedigree is bar none the best or one of the best out there, and he would be a solid pick and a guy who could have a successful career.
Very much so.
But saying the other thing, you're not talking about him just as a football player, unfortunately. You're talking to him as a homosexual. Now, it comes with a lot of baggage for an NFL team to sign him, and not saying there's going to be teams not going to sign him because of that, but there very well could be, because what's going to happen, it's going to become a media circus when he shows up at training camp, and the concentration is going to be on Sam's, the football player, homosexual, over than the rest of the team, and then that's going to be where you lose the room, and it's going to be hard for a lot of egos in the NFL to put him in check and have the media attention. And there's going to be a lot of media attention on him as soon as he hits the football field in the NFL, talking about him, not as a football player, but for what he stands for. And
that's going to go both ways. Yeah. When somebody signs him, they're going to have to deal with all that.
Yeah.
But when the team, and it's going to happen,
and some teams
somebody's going to
do
skip on him that probably shouldn't, and he's going to end up as an all-star, and it's always going to come back to that. Here's what he's doing, and you could have had him, and you didn't, because of the blinders were on, and you didn't want to do
and you know how the media is going to be. The media is going to be looking at, seeing that they're going to pick apart that team, waiting for somebody to kind of drop the ball and say something off the cuff.
All right, we're out of time for this segment. When we return, we're going to talk about the Lloydminster Bobcats, and they actually clinched a playoff spot. Can they actually move past the first round? We'll tell you coming up.